What if I told you that everything your granddad taught you about being quiet on the ice is wrong? What if all that tiptoeing, all that whispering, all that shushing your buddy for dropping his thermos is actually scaring the fish away? It sounds crazy, I know. For generations, we've believed that silence is golden when you're ice fishing. But today, we're going to flip that idea on its head. We're going to explore a wild theory that fish in the winter aren't afraid of noise. They're terrified of absolute silence. Stick around, because what you're about to hear might just be the reason you've been getting blanked on the ice. And it could completely change the way you fish. So let me ask you right now, before we even start, do you think making noise on the ice is a guaranteed way to spook fish? Let me know down in the comments, and let's see if you still think the same way in about 10 minutes. For as long as any of us have been fishing, the #1 rule of ice fishing has been be quiet. The logic seems simple enough, right? Ice is dense, water is dense, and sound travels through them incredibly well. We've all heard the stories. A loud stomp on the ice can be heard by fish 100 yards away. A dropped scoop sounds like a car crashed down there. So we learned to move like ghosts. We set our gear down gently, we drill our holes, and then we go into stealth mode, sitting perfectly still on a bucket for hours. This belief is drilled into us by the old-timers, passed down from father to son. It's a core tenet of fishing wisdom. We do it because it just makes sense. Nobody wants to be the guy who scared all the fish away, but what if this widespread belief is built on a misunderstanding of what a fish actually perceives as danger? First, let's establish a baseline. The world under the ice is not silent. It's a common misconception among anglers. We sit up top in the quiet, cold air and assume it's the same down below. But that's just not true. Underneath that sheet of ice, there's a constant symphony of subtle sounds. You have the groaning and cracking of the ice itself as temperatures change. There's the sound of water currents moving against the underside of the ice. You have the movement of other aquatic life, from tiny invertebrates to schools of minnows. This is the normal, everyday soundscape for a fish. It's the ambient noise of their world. They are born into it, they live in it, and they are completely accustomed to it. A world without these sounds is what would be truly unnatural for them. Absolute silence simply does not exist in their environment. Now let's think about how fish perceive their world. They have ears, but more importantly, they have a lateral line. This is an incredible sensory organ, a system of receptors running down their sides that detects movement and pressure vibrations in the water. They don't just hear in the way we do, they feel the world around them. This system is tuned to pick up the flutter of a struggling baitfish, the approach of another fish, or the subtle shift in water pressure caused by a predator. Their survival depends entirely on interpreting these vibrations correctly. So when we talk about sound, we're really talking about vibration. A fish is a finely tuned vibration detector, constantly analyzing its surroundings to find food and avoid becoming food. This is the key to understanding our whole theory. So what kind of noises do they hear all day long? Let's paint a picture. Imagine you're a perch, suspended about 15 feet down. You hear the deep boom of the ice shifting under the sun's warmth. You feel the subtle vibrations of a school of shiners moving a few yards away. You might even hear the tick-tick-tick of tiny crustaceans on the bottom. These are the sounds of a living, breathing ecosystem. They are signals that everything is normal, that life is going on as it should. For a fish, these vibrations are comforting. They mean that there are potential meals nearby and that other fish are not on high alert. This constant low-level background noise is their white noise. It's the sound of safety and normalcy. It's what tells them it's okay to let their guard down and feed. Let's take that a step further. For a predatory fish, and let's be honest, those are the ones we're usually after, sound often means one thing: food. The frantic vibrations of a struggling perch are a dinner bell for a northern pike. The collective hum of a bait ball is a signal for a walleye to move in. Activity creates sound and vibration. Life creates sound and vibration. A silent world, a dead world, is not a world where a predator is likely to find its next meal. So, in many cases, fish are actively drawn to certain types of sounds. They use their senses to home in on the subtle disturbances that signal an opportunity. They are not hiding from every little noise. On the contrary, they are actively listening for the right noises. This is a crucial distinction we need to make. Of course, not all noise is good noise. This is where the old-timers were partially right. There is absolutely a category of sound that spells danger to a fish. What is it? Sharp, sudden, and unnatural impact. Imagine dropping a heavy metal spud bar flat on the ice right over a school of crappies. That sharp, high-frequency clang is not a natural sound. It doesn't sound like ice cracking or minnows swimming. It sounds like an attack. It's an acoustic shock wave. The same goes for drilling a hole directly on top of where you marked fish. That intense, grinding vibration is a massive red flag. These are the sounds of immediate, localized danger. They are the acoustic equivalent of a hawk's shadow passing overhead. These are the noises that send fish scattering, and these are the noises we should absolutely avoid. So, if natural ambient noise is normal and sharp impact noises are dangerous, what about the third category? What about absolute dead silence? Think about it from a survival perspective, not just for fish, but for any prey animal. When does the forest go completely quiet? It happens when a major predator like a hawk or a coyote is spotted. The birds stop chirping, the squirrels stop chattering, everything freezes. This sudden, unnatural void of sound is a universal alarm bell in nature. It screams, "Danger is here!" The absence of normal ambient noise is a far more terrifying signal than the noise itself. It means something is very, very wrong. The fish's instincts, honed over millions of years, would surely interpret this the same way. Here's a perfect analogy for us humans. Imagine you're sitting on your back porch on a summer evening. You hear the crickets, the frogs, maybe a distant car. It's all normal background noise. Now what if, in an instant, every single one of those sounds stopped? Complete and total silence. What would you feel? You wouldn't feel relaxed. You'd feel a prickle of fear on the back of your neck. Your senses would go on high alert. You'd be scanning the darkness, wondering what just happened to cause that. That's instinct. And a fish's survival instinct is far more powerful than ours. That sudden shift to silence is a massive red flag, a signal that a predator is stalking nearby, and it's time to lock down, hide, and stop moving. Now let's apply this to a typical ice fishing scenario. You and your buddy arrive at the lake. You get out of the truck, slam the doors, and drag your sleds across the ice. You fire up the auger and drill your holes. You're setting up your gear, talking, and moving around. You are creating a ton of noise and vibration. The fish below hear all of this. It's a new, consistent background noise. They might be wary at first, but after a few minutes it just becomes part of the ambient soundscape. It's a constant, so it's not an immediate threat. They may even become curious about this new, steady source of vibration. They adjust to your presence. They accept it as the new normal for the day. And then what happens? You finish setting up, you bait your hooks, and you sit down on your bucket. You turn to your buddy and say, "Okay, let's be quiet now." And for the next hour, you don't move a muscle. You've just pulled the plug on the soundscape. You went from a consistent level of noise to absolute dead silence. From the fish's perspective, what just happened? The large, noisy creature that was on the surface has suddenly vanished. It went silent. This is the exact signal that a predator gives right before it strikes. You haven't made the fish feel safe. You've just triggered their most primal fear. You've created that hawk in the woods moment. Their fins tighten, they press their bellies to the bottom, and they will not bite anything. Let's dig deeper into the idea of vibration. We often think of it as a negative, but it doesn't have to be. The subtle thump of you shuffling your feet in your boots, or the scrape of your bucket as you adjust your position, might be beneficial. These are low-frequency, rhythmic sounds. They could easily mimic the sound of other fish moving around, or even just the natural sounds of a living lake. Instead of being an alarm, it could be a signal of normalcy. It's a consistent, non-threatening vibration that tells the fish below that the world is still turning. It might even be the very thing that masks the unnatural stillness of your lure, making it seem like just another part of the underwater environment. Maintaining a subtle, consistent vibration could be the key to keeping the fish relaxed. Think about our most successful winter fishing techniques for a moment. What do they all have in common? Rattle baits, jigging spoons, buckshot lures. They are designed to make noise and create vibration. We actively use sound to call fish in from a distance. We know that the clack of a rattle or the thump of a heavy spoon hitting the bottom can trigger aggressive strikes. We are literally breaking the silence with our lures. So why do we fanatically believe that any sound coming from above the ice will do the exact opposite? It's a complete contradiction. If fish are drawn to the vibrations of our lures, it stands to reason that they aren't terrified of all vibrations. It's the type and context of the sound that matters. Now, this theory does not mean you should host a dance party on the ice. We're not saying to stomp your feet and drop things on purpose. There is a huge difference between creating a consistent, low-level, ambient noise and creating sharp, shocking impacts. The key is consistency. A rhythmic, dull thump, thump, thump of you shuffling your feet every so often is predictable and non-threatening. A sudden, loud bang out of nowhere is an alarm bell. The goal isn't to be loud. The goal is to avoid being unnaturally silent. It's about maintaining a baseline of activity that the fish can acclimate to, rather than creating a silent world that puts them on edge. I can remember a specific day that this whole idea started to click for me. I was out on a tough bite, fishing for walleye. We had been sitting perfectly still for over 2 hours without a single mark on the flasher. My feet were getting cold, so I started slowly rocking back and forth, just shuffling my boots on the ice to get the blood flowing. It wasn't loud, just a faint, rhythmic scuff, scuff, scuff. Within 30 seconds, a huge red line appeared on my screen and shot up to my lure. I jigged once and the fish hammered it. A total coincidence? Maybe. But it happened 2 more times that day, each time after I started moving around a bit. It was too much to ignore. It made me question everything I thought I knew. There's some science to back this up too. Underwater acoustics are incredibly complex. Low-frequency sounds, like a heavy footstep, can travel a very long way, but they may not sound like a footstep to the fish. That dull thump could easily be mistaken for a natural sound, like the ice sheet expanding and cracking, or a large fish disturbing the bottom some distance away. High-frequency sounds, like a dropped set of keys, are much more distinct and unnatural. So the dull, rhythmic sounds of our normal movements might just be blending into the natural background noise, effectively camouflaging our presence rather than announcing it. We are becoming part of the lake's natural symphony. And we can't forget about the curiosity factor. Many of the fish we target, especially predators like pike, walleye, and big perch, are naturally curious animals. An unusual but non-threatening sound can be an attractant. A consistent, subtle tapping or shuffling might be just enough to pique their interest and draw them in to investigate. They come over to see what's causing the disturbance, and what do they find? Your perfectly presented jig or minnow. You've used sound not as a deterrent, but as a beacon. You've turned your presence from a liability into an asset. Instead of hiding from the fish, you're inviting them over to check you out. It's a complete reversal of the old way of thinking. Perhaps it's time we completely redefine what it means to spook a fish in the winter. We've always operated under the assumption that any noise we make is bad, but maybe it's not the noise itself, but the change in the acoustic environment that spooks them. The real problem could be the dramatic shift from a period of noise setting up to a period of absolute silence. That sudden change is unnatural. It signals a threat. A consistent environment, even if it includes the noise of our presence, is predictable. And in a predictable environment, fish feel safe enough to feed. The spooking isn't caused by your footsteps, it's caused by the moment your footsteps stop. So here is a practical experiment you can try on your next trip out. Fish for 1 hour the old school way. Be as quiet as humanly possible. Don't move, don't shuffle, just sit there and be silent. Log your results. See how many fish you mark and how many you catch. Then for the next hour, change it up. Intentionally make a little bit of noise. Shuffle your feet every few minutes. Gently tap the handle of your scoop on the ice. Don't go crazy, just create a subtle, consistent level of activity. Compare the results. You might be shocked at what you find. This isn't just a theory, it's something you can test for yourself. The proof might be waiting for you right there on your fish finder. This theory becomes even more critical when you consider fishing in shallow water. Let's say you're targeting panfish in only 6 or 8 feet. In this environment, the fish are already on a higher alert. They have fewer escape routes and are more vulnerable to overhead predators. Any sign of danger is magnified. Now, imagine you go completely silent. That predator's stalking signal is going to be 10 times more effective. The fish will bury themselves in the nearest weed bed and shut down completely. In shallow water, maintaining a consistent, non-threatening presence might be even more important. It reassures them that you are just part of the environment, not an immediate threat poised to strike from above. Let's also think about the sound of your lure itself. When you're jigging in a completely silent environment, your lure is the only thing making noise. It's a solitary signal in a dead world. It might seem unnatural. Why is that one thing moving when everything else is frozen in fear? A fish might wonder. Now imagine there's a bit of background noise from you shuffling your feet above. Your lure's vibration is no longer a solo performance. It's just one instrument in the orchestra. It blends in, it seems more like a natural part of a living, active environment. Your own ambient noise could be providing the cover that makes your lure presentation far more believable and effective. So, here is the final piece of the puzzle, the big takeaway. The ultimate goal on the ice should not be to achieve perfect silence. The goal should be to avoid creating unnatural acoustic voids. It's about sound management, not sound elimination. By maintaining a low, consistent level of activity, you are creating a new normal for the fish below. You are blending into the natural soundscape of the lake. You are avoiding the one signal that every prey animal instinctively fears. The sudden, terrifying silence that means a predator is about to attack. You are, in essence, hiding in plain sight, using a baseline of noise as your camouflage. It turns decades of ice fishing wisdom completely on its head. So let's wrap this all up. For years we've tiptoed on the ice, believing that any sound would ruin our chances. But the big twist, the major takeaway from all this, is that the opposite might be true. The real enemy isn't noise, it's the unnatural void of sound we create when we try to be perfectly still. That silence is a universal danger signal in nature. By making a little bit of consistent rhythmic noise, we might actually be calming the fish down, reassuring them that everything is normal and even drawing them in out of curiosity. The very thing we thought was spooking them might be the key to keeping them relaxed and willing to bite. This idea could fundamentally change your entire approach to ice fishing. Thank you so much for watching and for having an open mind. If this gave you something to think about, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more videos that challenge conventional fishing wisdom. And now I want to hear from you. After hearing all this, what do you think? Is this the biggest breakthrough in ice fishing, or the craziest theory you've ever heard? Let me know in the comments below.